Welcome to Door2Door Insider, where we take a deep dive into the mindset, the why, and the how of the industry's top entrepreneurs, leaders, recruiters, and salespeople. We are the Door2Door Nation. Here is your host, Lee Barber. Let's go.
All right, gang, welcome to Door2Door Insider. Today I am thrilled to bring back special guest Jamie Lynn. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist with a passion for helping other people navigate complex emotional challenges. With over a decade in private practice and 8 years as a social worker, Jamie brings a wealth of experience to her work. She specializes in narcissism and trauma, drawing from her unique background working with human trafficking survivors along with the Vice Unit. Jamie is also putting the finishing touches on her upcoming book designed to guide individuals towards healing from narcissistic abuse and deep emotional wounds. Get ready for an insightful conversation as we dive into the expertise, practical wisdom for transforming lives. Jamie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me back, Lee.
Yeah.
It's so good to be here. It's like deja vu.
Yeah, it's cool. So we were talking before the podcast, and I think it's been a year and a half.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants to listen to your original episode, just go to Door2Door Insider. And it was, I think I just was therapy. And I spelled it wrong the first time and got it right.
Oh,
the
did
second.
you?
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm a terrible speller. I probably didn't even notice.
So I have some, I think on the first podcast, I think we got so many listeners involved just because, I think I'm 50, and I'm not a therapist, but in my experience with humans, like we all suffer from, the human condition, right? We have the same joys that we all, no matter where you are in the world, there's love, there's hate, there's anger, there's passion. And so really like what I see is there's a lot of relatability. And one of the things that you said was that, I'd been kind of vulnerable on the first podcast. Maybe that helped. So I kind of plan to do that today. I've pinned out some questions for our podcast, but I just want to start with a little bit about you.
Okay.
So you're a badass, first of all. No, you are.
Thanks.
You're like one of the smartest people I know.
Thank you.
And I mean that. I've seen your intellect. Like one of the weirdest. I don't know what you do. And you said I've referred clients to you, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how she does it. She writes notes over here. And then she looks up and like, you've been babbling for 5 minutes and she's like, let me tell you what you're really doing. And I'm like, but you're so intelligent, right? You're very intelligent. You're super well-versed in your craft. And like what I've noticed and what you've said you do is you do a lot of reframing. You've gone to school, done a ton of stuff in the therapy industry, but also you're in an amazing relationship. You're a fitness, I wouldn't say kind of like a influencer almost, but
I
you're
don't know.
pretty badass.
I kind of
like
moonlight as a few things. It's weird, right?
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about like, Jamie.
Yeah, well, I think therapy is just my passion. I would do it even if I wasn't a therapist, and I think I just kind of always naturally found myself in a position where I was comforting or counseling, and I've just been very fascinated with the way people think. And I just had a knack for it. I had a knack for understanding people, and I think I would notice that people would kind of tell me things without me asking, and I was like, yeah, like I just love it. It doesn't feel like work to me. I love what I do. I absolutely love it, and I really care about the people that I work with. But I think but I'm more than that, right?
100%.
I do a lot of things besides therapy. Like you said, I have a relationship. I'm also divorced, so that's something that people don't always know about me. Is that I've experienced my fair share of broken relationships and things like that. So I can pull from a level of personability, relatability. I kind of understand what it's like for people to walk through some of those tough things and then heal from it. But I also do some modeling. I also do like a lot of fitness stuff where I do, again, not something that I tried to create. It just was, I would just post what I would do.
Yeah.
And then from there, it ended up developing into other things. And then you can get kind of mini businesses out of that with social media nowadays. Marrying the two together is kind of weird, right? Because you don't typically see therapists share aspects of their personal life, which I do.
Yeah.
But
I think it's bold. I've always thought it was bold. Like I have a respect for it because I didn't mean to interrupt, but it seems bold to me because it's like there's a level, right? But I think it's really bold that you do it,
Thank you. I've gotten a lot of backlash for it, that's for sure. But at the end of the day, I don't really care.
Yeah, doesn't matter. So outside of that, right? So smart, fit, great relationship, come from, you understand things. Pink Pill, you had a podcast.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit. So that's now kind of taking a back burner to the book. So let's talk a little bit about Pink Pill, and then a little bit because there's still episodes out there, and if people want to listen to us, tell us a little bit about Pink Pill.
So Pink Pill actually was very interesting. So I do a lot of speaking events and engagements outside of therapy. So I was invited on this show with a guy named Rollo Tomasi, and he's like the king of manosphere, if any of your audience is familiar with that. So he's up there with like the Andrew Tates and stuff like that of the world. So highly controversial figure. And I was invited on the show not knowing who he was.
Androsphere? Is that like the
manosphere?
Manosphere. Is that like super masculine? Like,
well, yeah, it's like machismo. It's like women have their place. It's kind of like women need to be women can't interrupt, women shouldn't work, women should, very submissive, very
so
traditional.
Basically the 1800s.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, but they do it with like anger and aggression and all this other wacky shit that I see them do.
Yeah.
So I go on this show and I start hearing this stuff that I've never really heard before, and it took me a minute to wrap my mind around it. I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into?
Yeah.
And
then, so you went on the show.
I was a guest.
Knowing the content.
Had no idea.
Oh.
Yeah, they just told me that they wanted me to talk about love and relationships, which I can do.
Gotcha.
But it ended up being like I was on the spot.
So it's more of like a conflict setup.
It was very
like entrapment.
It felt that way to me. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you can kind of sense, Lee, that I don't really back down from things like that. No. So I was more than happy to take them on.
Small but mighty. Yeah.
But I was a little outnumbered. But I had to, so because that was such a powerful experience for me, I dove myself and immersed myself into what the hell is manosphere? What is this red pill stuff that I keep hearing about? And that's when I was introduced to Andrew Tate and all these other people. And I was like, I was so angry at the content they were pushing out. I created Pink Pill. That's why it started.
I love that.
I was like, I'm not going to just like let this go. Like I had a responsibility to give people alternatives, because I didn't disagree with everything that they were saying. However, they would go to an extreme route for clickbait, views, and they were pushing out some stuff that I felt like would be very, very unhealthy and stuff that actually doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think the thing about stuff like that too, it's funny because we'll talk about it later. But one of the things, my voice had been silenced in something, and when you need to speak out, right? And the problem with what you're talking about is the other end of what they're doing. In today's society, there is a lot of clickbait, and the problem is people are very mentally susceptible to that type of thing. And they can really take on those traits. So even if the person has some belief or no belief or just is using it for clickbait, people will eat that up and start to turn those into like actual personality traits. So it's a really dangerous game to play. Yeah.
It is, and a lot of these, and here's the really funny thing about that too. I knew these people personally, and they weren't living that.
They don't live that life.
They weren't living that.
Which is always the worst.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
So the Pink Pill, if anybody wants to find that, it's on Apple Music or Apple Podcasts,
it's on
I'm
Apple,
sure.
Spotify. It's called Pink Pill with Jamie Lynn.
Okay.
And so you guys can go find it there. I haven't filmed in a little bit, but all my episodes are still up. If you like it, please like and share the content.
Yeah. And Jamie, you'll be on when we do the podcast cover. Jamie will be on there. You can go on. I'm sure you have a link tree or something in your Instagram where they can kind of go find the Pink Pill.
Yes, it's in my bio.
Cool.
Yeah.
So the book, tell us.
Yeah.
It's not out yet, so you probably have to be,
baby.
but let's plug this thing a little bit.
So this is what there's nothing like it. I can tell you that. It's amazing. And I'm so proud of what this has become. One of my passions is narcissism. That is something that I know.
I think I remember my first podcast. I'm like, am I a narcissist?
Yeah, you did.
And you're like, no. And I'm like, oh, thank God.
You've asked me that in private too.
Yeah,
and I was like, no, Lee, you're fine.
Well, when you're seeing a narcissist specialist, but you do so much other stuff.
I do. Like, I like that topic more than any other topic. But I can really do it all. I really
No,
can.
you're really good at everything.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to off track you, but
That's okay. But it's really about that, because what's happening, and I'm making some very bold claims in this book, which I don't want to say right now. I'll say it when the book's out.
Yeah.
But I'd let people don't know what narcissism is. They just don't. They hear these pop psychology things on TikToks and 5 ways to identify a narcissist and this and whatever. And I'm like, you're wrong. You guys got it all wrong. You have no idea what a narcissist is. So I'm pushing out content to actually reframe, what it is. And I'm also redefining what an empath is as well. So that there's a whole section of my book really kind of dedicated to that, because that term has also been misused and misapplied.
Are narcissists and empaths often attracted to each other? Or is it just, no, they're not?
No, they're not.
Yeah.
It's something completely else. Something completely different is happening there, which I would love to go into, but I can't right now.
So let's wait for the book.
Can't right now. And then the second portion of the book is actually about spirituality. So I am a Christian. My faith is very important to me. I don't push that on anybody. But what I have found that makes this, I believe that we are more than just body and mind. I believe that we have a spirit, and that part has been really neglected in psychotherapy. And that's something that I really like to highlight and pay attention to when I work with people. And there is a lot of content in this book. And if you are a person of faith, if you believe in spirituality, this book addresses those concerns that can apply to you, because oftentimes religion, faith-based healers, those kinds of things will take you down the wrong track as well.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Well, when the book comes out, we can, for the listeners, if you want, just let me know when it comes out and the link to like the Amazon, and I can just post it for
that'd be great.
People.
Thank you.
We'll get that out.
That'd be awesome.
So great. I appreciate you being so vulnerable with all your, that's such an amazing, I love all that. You're so well versed. So these were my thoughts. I had written down, so audience, bear with me a little bit. I had written down 9 topics, and I think we'll just kind of dive through them. I'm going to read them verbatim to start for what I had written down. And then I'll kind of like maybe unpack like what it means to me and maybe why I'm asking the question a little bit. I'm kind of like shooting from the hip here a little bit.
Yeah.
But then maybe just go into like your thoughts on the subjects. And I think these are like, obviously these are super relevant to what's going on with me in my life and like what I'm experiencing, but what I see other people also kind of going through in their lives, right? We see a lot of this, and a lot of this has to do with work, but a lot of this has to do with personal. I think there's so much intermingling in the way that we deal with just our life as a life, right? From our paradigm, from our view, from our like toolbox. So that's kind of my plan. So I'll just kind of start with question one.
Let's go.
Let's just see what happens.
Fire, let's go.
All right. So number one, I have from our sessions on my struggles in business and relationships. Can you explain how paradigms shape our view on who's right and wrong in hurtful work or career situations? For instance, I have encountered others justifying harmful behaviors towards me, like colleagues undermining my effort or partners rationalizing unethical decisions through their flawed paradigms, creating divergent realities from shared truths. How can listeners recognize when somebody else's paradigm distorts the situation in family dynamics or workplace situations and take steps to bridge the gap? So for me, the reason that I wrote this down, and just so everybody knows, the 1 through 9 was assisted by AI, but I put my thoughts in there and I'm like, help me. What I've kind of seen is like, there's a starting point with a situation, whether it's in a relationship, my marriage, and I'll just speak first person, right? So I don't speak for anybody else. It can be in my marriage. It can be with a friend. It can be with a business associate. And there is something happens. And then one of my favorite books is Crucial Conversations. And what Crucial Conversations says is that the time in between an incident happening and the lack of communication can be devastating. And what Crucial Conversations was always how I kind of have seen it, is that the two people start to separate in the way that they're viewing the reality and start to like kind of blame the other, like I'm blaming that and they're blaming this and that. And I've kind of seen that. So one, how do you determine, I guess, that you're sane or right and keep checked in? So I guess we'll take these in like maybe kind of partial things. Like how do you keep checked in to like being rational? Because I'll go through sometimes like, am I just playing a victim right now? Or is there actually a problem? And we've had conversations where you've been like, no, you're actually being naively, like that's not what's happening. And so that's kind of where the basis of this question comes up, is like, this incident happens, whatever it is, whether it's marriage or this or that. And so there's been times when we've talked about my marriage and I'm like, this is what happened. And, da, 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 da. And you're like, well, actually, you're thinking about it completely irrationally, and you're using, the different things. And so where are the checks and balances for us when, we're in these tough situations and paradigms and realities seem so real? How do we, find whether we're being naive or if we are at fault, and where the responsibility lies?
Yeah. That's a great question. I'm going to do my best to answer. So I think number one, let's kind of clarify like what a paradigm is, right? So we tend to kind of see the world through our own lens. Okay. So if I'm loyal and trustworthy, I tend to project that onto my relationships. I tend to think, okay, well, you're going to be loyal and trustworthy too. Like if I'm not an axe murderer, I'm not thinking of where I might bury a body, right? Like we tend to kind of see things through our own lens, and then we're shocked when people don't think like us, or when people don't treat us how we want to be treated, or we're always shocked by that behavior because we're coming from our own point of view. Now, this can get really muddy because there are things that our brain will do that can distort reality. And you really do, unless you know what those things are, you have some level of awareness and objectivity, you are not going to know. So that's why things like therapy and getting some feedback from somebody that you trust is actually quite crucial in unveiling what is objective reality. Okay. But I always think it starts with your gut. Like not everybody is for you. Not in business, not in your personal relationships. And we get wounded by the people that tend to hurt us the most. That being said, we don't want to go into every relationship like this, right?
Piss up.
So when we're wounded or there's been offense, we need to check in with ourselves first and kind of make sure that we're not responding from a position of threat. Because anytime we're dysregulated emotionally, our bodies are off, that is a number one guarantee that we're probably going to misread something. So you want to give yourself some time to kind of reduce your emotional reactivity. So going back to baseline, which, I kind of talked about in the last podcast. So you want to kind of start responding from a place of neutral, emotional, less like charge. And that'll get you more to objective reality. The other thing that you can do is write down the facts, like not your personal perception, but what were the actual facts of what happened between that exchange. And that can kind of help lead you one way or another way. But what does your gut kind of say? Do you feel like things are being twisted? Do you actually sense that something's off and you can't quite put your finger on it? Those are actually really good cues that to explore further, to get curious, not to make a judgment, but to get curious and ask more like exploration type questions rather than like accusations. You really have to watch your mouth because you can't take that stuff back. You have to watch what you say. And I'll give you this kind of tip too.
I have a hard time with that.
Yeah, a lot of people do. A lot of people do.
What was the tip?
One of the biggest tips that can kind of suggest that you're getting personally attacked and it's them, not you, is if you feel like you have to write an account of everything that happened. That's usually a sign that there's been gaslighting. If, questioning your personal reality, that's very different than being aware.
That's interesting. So, yeah, I obviously, so just so the listeners can understand my paradigm on this and some of what I, because we obviously do work together, is I'm a very emotional person. I'm emotional based. Like I have more than other men that I've known in my life. I've known other men that are emotional like me, but I cry. I'm an emotional person. I am a very emotional, and it can carry into different aspects of my life. But I'm also very trusting. I'm very loving. There's these weird side. This is a whole nother conversation. But sometimes my personal perception of myself and my actions have conflicted also, and I think people suffer from that. But I think my core self is a very trusting and loving person, and I love deeply and I care deeply, and I personally don't ever go into a relationship thinking like, oh, I'm going to get you, or I'm going to win here, or I'm going to hustle. I'm going to like, and also I tend to try and find some type of resolution. And so where I've gotten mixed up in some of this, and one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is because one of the things that was enlightening for me was what you just said at the beginning of that was you're viewing the situation, you're expecting them to react like you would react. You're expecting them to take accountability like you would take accountability, and it's like, so it was really eye-opening for me, and it's just an interesting like paradigm to put out there, because I feel like, one, no matter what the situation is, whether it's my marriage, whether it's my work, I have a responsibility to know what is my problem. Like where am and there's what am I doing wrong? What can I have done better? How can I take accountability? And sometimes, and that was the other portion of this question, is sometimes I can get into la la land too, where Lee thinks Lee's right. And what's been interesting for me working with you over the years is, one of the things that I've suffered from, and I think we talked about this on the last podcast, so we don't have to go crazy in the paint with it, but I've had severe body dysmorphia for almost all of my life. I was really overweight when I was a little kid. I've had plastic surgeries and like all of this different stuff. And that body dysmorphia has given, I used, I'm fine talking about my business. I used steroids for a long time because I was always trying to chase this body or this person or this, and I could never get there. And it led into steroid addiction for years. The steroids would cause anger issues. And, I wake up and just destroy myself. And until I really got into therapy with you over the body dysmorphia, I was reacting to life under that paradigm. I would react to my wife over it, my sex life, my personal life, my gym life. There was so many things, and I didn't even know I was doing it. It was so deep and set in there. And so that was the other important thing on this for me is like, sometimes I'm glad that I have you in my life. We do therapy on the telehealth, but since we've been working together, I've started to see like where my trigger, like, oh, this isn't even reality.
Right.
And so, some of the stuff that I go through, I try and run by you. And I'm like, okay, am I at fault here? Am I crazy? And so, I've gotten a lot of advice from you. So that was a really good take on that, is that don't always see, and that was my takeaways, don't always see don't expect them to act like you would act. And then don't be naive in that, but also write down what's actually happening to check your own facts to make sure that you're not being accountable for your own stuff.
Absolutely.
So that was awesome. All right. The next one, in my experience, there have been moments in both my business dealings and close relationships where I felt completely unable to defend myself, leaving me vulnerable and frustrated. How does this dynamic play out for many people, and what are the strategies that can help someone regain their voice without escalating conflicts, especially when it ties into deeper issues like self-worth, past hurts, life relationships, professional settings? So I wrote this one just, some of the stuff I've gone through at work, and I've recently started voicing my stuff a little bit more in a very discreet-ish manner, and it's made me feel good to have a voice again.
Yeah.
But in my relationship, there's been times where I feel like I've shut Misty's voice down. It gets me emotional. But these things work both ways. Yeah. And when you don't feel like you have a voice or you can say something, you kind of feel stuffed, right? And it makes you feel, and what I do is I loop. I get angry, and because I can't talk about it, I don't know what to do with it. So, in relationships, I'm sure abusive relationships with men and women where they get into physical and all these different things where people, where they can't talk about it or they feel shame. I just wanted you to talk about that for a little bit. Like, how do you deal with a situation if you don't feel like you can have your voice? How do you get your voice back? How do you deal with yourself emotionally while you're trying to process those things? Like, what's some good advice on that? What have you seen?
Well, people that lose their voice aren't born that way. That's an adaptation. That's outside of, I think, how we're wired and how we're designed. You have a mouth for a reason. It's usually a coping mechanism, like placation. placating bad behavior. You said something interesting in that questioning that I picked up on, and that's how can I express myself without escalating? And that is the key. There's something in there that's hidden. People aren't expressing themselves because they're worried about the escalation. You can't worry about that. Okay, that's part of the disorder. Okay. It's like, I'm worried about how this person's going to perceive me. I'm worried how this person is going to respond. And it's like, so even the question is poorly framed, right? It doesn't actually make you free. These are trauma responses. That question right there was a trauma response. You know, how do I not upset them and still get my voice heard? Well, you might actually not. You might actually upset them, but that doesn't mean that you're doing something bad or wrong. And that's what so many people kind of struggle and fight with. Now, anger is not a bad emotion. Being silenced is usually coming from a position of helplessness, or it's a trauma response like feigning, fawning, fear, like freezing. Like those are trauma responses. And if knowledge is power. If you kind of know what these things are, it can help you recognize them. And once you're aware of it, it gives you the power to kind of step in and change it. When you're not aware that you could be responding from possibly a traumatic place, or that, hey, it's really not you. You really weren't designed this way. This is a response to even conditioning. Women are very much conditioned to be good girl, nice girl, nurturing, whatever. Don't say anything. Right? Once you kind of start realizing, you know, those things maybe aren't natural or how you're supposed to be made, then it gives you some more power and authority to start creating some space to move differently. Now, when I say move differently, it doesn't mean you have to be aggressive. It doesn't mean that you have to be adversarial. It just means you can very calmly start saying things, or even setting boundaries like no without explaining yourself would be a great thing to start with. It's just like, no. That's one of my favorite things to do, is tell somebody no and then not explain why and watch what they do. I love it. It's so toxic, right? Maybe that's my toxic trait. I don't know, but I'll just be like, no, I can't do that. And they're like, everybody's used to you saying why. Exactly. But these little things can help start you getting connected to your voice. But yes, the silence is typically, it's like, recognize where it comes from. It's not really you. It's usually a conditioned response or response to trauma. And you can do things like setting like little boundaries to help you assist with that.
No, I vibe with that. I think, like, you know, just listening to what you were this is why I love our therapy sessions, because when you were just talking, I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly why I do that. But that's why, you know, the funny thing, if anybody ever sees Jamie, she's talking to you and over here, she's got this little notepad and she just writes down very few things. And then she hits you with this thing and you're like, oh no, that's actually, so because it made me just think, what I do is like, and what I've recently broke away from is like, I really don't give a fuck what you're going to think about me anymore. I wasn't saying anything because I'm scared I'm going to hurt this person's feeling, or this person's my friend and we've been friends for so long. I don't want to hurt their feelings anymore. And I'm like, fuck off. I need to say how I feel. And, you know, so interesting that I wrote that question probably a month ago. And just hearing you say that, the exact reason that the question's there is because I'm so worried about what somebody else is going to think if I say it. So I silence my own self.
Well, also, we are given a false narrative. Okay. This is grooming 101. It's gross and I hate it. But we're given a false narrative that if somebody has a response, or they're upset or frustrated at something that we've said, we have done something wrong. Not necessarily. You don't know who you're dealing with on the other end of that line. Like, what if that person's trying to manipulate you? What if that person's a narcissist? They're going to be upset if you just challenge them or disagree with them. It doesn't mean that you're wrong. But so often, if people have big emotional responses and be like, oh, well, how dare you? Oh, well, how could you? Somehow the audience looks at you like you're the one doing something wrong. And we have been groomed and conditioned to not do that, not say those things. Really, what you need to do is you have to have it's a bit of a complex process, but you can't be afraid of that. You have to be so rooted in who you are and what your truth is. And you have to say things from a place of love. That is true. You absolutely need to do that. But that doesn't mean it won't hurt them.
Yeah. I love that. That was really good. I love re-listening to these too, because I get so much more out of them. So that was great. So the third one I have. So I face situations where people claim the facts that I'm stating aren't true, even if distorting their own if distorting their own publicly to push an alternative reality on others. But I realize that this can be a tactical strategy, not always genuine beliefs. From our therapy talks, how can we spot these tactics in others, avoid a naive paradigm, and respond effectively? This applies to anyone handling tough dynamics at work or in relationships with family. So the reason that I wrote this one was because I think it was 2 or 3. So we do personals and we also do couples with where me and Misty are together. It was 2 or 3 of our personals ago. And, I was talking about a situation I was going through with, some of my career stuff and work. And, it really in line with what we've been talking about, right? I was like, I don't want to, and what you said was basically that I was being naive.
Yeah.
You did. You're really blunt. You're like, you're being naive. Like, stop being naive. I mean, we've done this too with some of my personal situations. I was in, I don't want to talk about, I won't talk about that, but I was in a personal situation with somebody else and they were constantly manipulating. We were in court and we were going through all this stuff and you're like, they're not stupid.
Yeah.
Because I was like, it's dumb. It's dumb. And you're like, they're not dumb. You're being naive. They're playing a game.
Well, you're with that situation, you were very much seeing it through your lens, right? And I was like, what if it is intentional? What if it is designed to be exploitive? What if it is exactly that? Because everything that you observed that behavior was through the lens of they would never.
Yeah, of me, how I would react in the situation.
Right,
so,
but that it was very clear to me that was not what was going on there.
And you were right, it was not. So in this one, it was a similar thing. You've actually woken me up a few times, and I think I'd love to hear your description on empath because you said that. But I do that a lot. I think it's normal, right? We view the world and from which way, how would I react in this situation? And then it's hurtful because you're like, oh, you're not doing what I would do. And it's like, but that's naive. And so in this, this situation that's going on with my career, there's these, things that are happening and you're like, you're being naive. And so just, I guess, talk about that a little bit. Like, and I can restate the question or if you got it.
Well, tell me, like how can we tell if somebody's manipulating us?
Yeah,
or...
I think that's a great way. Like, so I guess the question, and I'm just coming to it, I think, is how do we know when? Because the moment you said I was being naive, I was like, oh my God, I am. You're right. 100.
Well, look, I was basing that off of not one interaction, but a pattern and an experience of you constantly being exploited. I was also able to pick up on other areas of your life where you have exhibited this trait, where you were always shocked by bad behavior. So it was not difficult for me to pull from that. So, look, the truth is, and most of your viewers are not going to like hearing this, is you're not going to know right away. Okay, you're not going to know right away. Somebody like myself is going to probably know a lot sooner. But again, I like my experience in dealing with this and my awareness around how different brains work, things like that. I'm going to be looking at, that's my lens now,
Yeah.
Whereas somebody that's kind of just walking into this is constantly going to be shocked by bad behavior. And you don't need to change those empathic traits and you don't need to lose hope or faith in people. But like a lot of times we say these things and then where's the wisdom though? Where's your discernment? Like, why aren't we talking about those qualities that need to pair with that? Because if you're not doing that, then you're just a doormat. You're part of the problem. You're allowing people you're not respecting yourself. You're not taking care of yourself. You're neglecting yourself. And you have an obligation and responsibility unto yourself first. Yeah. But how to recognize a manipulator? Well, it really is going to start with your gut. It's going to start with confusion, number one. It will always start with confusion. You're always going to question something. It will be this one thing that you can't quite put your finger on and you're going to be like, that was weird. And it will not make sense, but you pay attention to that. Because that will connect you to all the other things. And it's in the pattern that you can start to see, oh, this is probably a person I can't trust. Oh, this is a person that repeated that story back, but I saw how this actually happened and that doesn't quite match this. So I'm not really sure that they're like, why would this person be doing this? Why would they be saying it in this way? And watch what they do in the small things.
Watch their character in the little things, not the big things, because it's the little things. Because if you're not responsible with the little things, you're not going to be responsible with the big things. So do they take care of their dog? Like these are character traits that can tell you and as you're working on discernment, as you're working on getting a feel for things, these are things that you can objectively look at to create a measurement of how close you can get to somebody or not. But it will always start in your gut. It will always start with confusion, questioning something, being unsure of something, and that will add and add. And what you have to be careful about doing is not dismissing that and justifying it or minimizing it.
I love that. Yeah, it's interesting. I was just sitting here thinking through, my first thought was like, God, this is all the things that's embarrassing. I watched this show called Love After Lockup with Misty. It's so
oh my
bad.
God, I've watched a few episodes.
Oh my God, it's
yes.
So bad.
Yeah.
It's so bad. It's like just a train. But you see these people, right, making the stupidest decision possible on earth. I just got out of prison. We're going to have a baby. Neither one of us have a job.
Yeah.
You're like, exactly. What? I still have on an ankle monitor. And the girl's like, yep, that sounds like a good idea. And then later in the interview, she's like, yeah, my last boyfriend, same thing. Last boyfriend, same thing. And it's just kind of this. So I related to that instantly. It was like seeing, like, in my early adulthood, I made a lot of the same relationship mistakes, right? And it's because I was the same broken person. And so when you said it's going to happen for a long time and you're not going to recognize, when I actually started recognizing when I was gone into therapy, was when I actually started recognizing a lot of what I was doing. And what my next thought was interesting. And just so the listeners know, Jamie obviously can't talk about her client list, but she's worked with me in Door2Door and has, extensive knowledge of people in how Door2Door works, right? But what's interesting in the Door2Door community is, like, there's this thing called culture, right? And it's like this white label thing, but it's almost like a propaganda technique, right? It's almost like a Republican or Democrat or this or that, where it's like you fall into this box. And, it's like you see Tulsi Gabbard, and I can switch subjects. You see Tulsi Gabbard go from the Democrat Party to the Republican, and they're like, oh, you're so bad. And there's this huge backlash of, like, and oh, she's speaking out. And it's like, our industry can be like that, where guys get into these things. And, one of the things I've seen is I've seen the little things. I've seen people lie about situations right in front of me on calls with lots of people. And then traumatic things happen to other people, but not everybody, they just stay doing the same thing. They're like, oh, they'll do it to them, they'll do it to him, they'll do it to her, but that's fine, we'll just stay in this bad, and they keep making the same. So, that's why these things are relatable to me, because I see people do them in their personal relationships, but I also see this a lot in my professional career. And I really think and I'm part of the problem. I'm not just a victim, right? Like, not seeing it, not doing something about it. But I've been in that situation myself, where my culture, quote unquote, has been a veil of, outside manipulation and all these tactics and all these things. So, like, I really relate to what you were saying. And there's that. So I guess the bottom line is, one, trust your gut instinct, and then I guess go back to what you said, write down some of the facts.
Well, yeah, look, if you feel confused, look, like, truth brings clarity, not confusion. So if you're questioning something, if something just doesn't make sense, ask for clarity. If that person escalates because you're asking for clarity, red flag. 100% red flag.
Yeah. There's a lot of that. That's great. So that's why I love this stuff. So number 4, from identifying my own trauma responses and triggers to realizing I'm still using survival tools from the past, hardships in everyday life, like hypervigilance in relationships or overworking in business. How can people spot these patterns? What does overcoming trauma really look like? And how do we update the toolkit for a healthier response today, perhaps even modeling this for our colleagues? So this was, one of the things that you said to me a lot was that I'm using, most of my viewers have heard my podcasts. It's funny because I'm doing this stuff on social media, and this guy's making fun of me for spelling. I'm like, trauma response. I'm like, okay, my mom did drugs with me when I was in the womb. right? So I have severe dyslexia. I have attention deficit, but I overcame childhood obesity. I overcame childhood and adult addiction. I was in prison for 9.5 years. I overcame recidivism. I'm the first 7-figure earner in my family. I've changed my daughter's life. I own a roofing company. But I can't spell because I have dyslexia, right? So it's like you see this and just creates this like, trauma response, right? So my initial tool for that is send me a pen.
Yeah.
Like that's, and I'm like, that's not right. Or in my relationship, I'm like, raising my voice or not responding right or shutting down completely emotionally or isolating or not communicating. And it's a lot of that comes down to being scared to be vulnerable, right? And so it's like I have all these tools that, and you're like, Lee, they helped you get through your childhood. Like you needed those. You needed anger. You needed violence. You needed, to be hyper vigilant and always aware, in prison and all these different things, these environments that were just bananas. But those are like, still, I, hold on to a lot of those tools because those are my responses, especially when I get emotionally elevated. And I think the reason I'm being so vulnerable is because I think a lot of people, trauma is relative. My trauma is not greater or worse than anybody else's trauma. I feel that people's trauma is relative. Do I think there can be worse situations in life? I do, but people, right? And so it's like we go through these things. So what I wanted to talk about, or you to talk about, was helping, maybe give an explanation of like, why are people using these tools and how do they recognize that they're using these tools? Because for me, what's been imperative, and it's a slow burn, right? It's like the wheels turn slow, but they turn. Like putting the tools down or picking up a new tool in that situation has been a very slow process for me because it's like, this is how I do, this is how I see it, this is what I do. But over the years, I've gotten better incrementally. But that started with an awareness that I was using the wrong tools for the job, right? And so I just wanted you to just kind of talk on that because it's been one of the pivotal things. The body dysmorphia and some of my challenges have been very pivotal in what we've done for me, like helping me recreate my reality, how I think about myself. But this has been another one. It's like, because I go into these negative loops and these angers and these things and these responses and shutting down and, all these things.
Well, like Lee, like with you, you've lived 90% of your like former life in survival mode, right? Yeah. And you did need those things, but you don't need it now, right? Yeah. Now, me asking you to lay those things down means, oh, you want me to give up my sword, the one thing that's actually like helped me and like helped me survive. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I want you to do. That's a big ask, right? You have to have a lot of trust in somebody to be able to do that. That doesn't mean that urgency or that desire goes away. It is a practiced behavior and it starts with awareness of what you're doing. Otherwise, these things just kind of run automatically. Trauma is relative, like you're saying, and you don't want to rate trauma. And I believe everybody's kind of had trauma. But when we've had trauma, what happens is how do we get out of that? Because most people don't get out of it. They actually stay in it and they keep repeating patterns and they keep rehearsing things that are problematic. And they go into survival mode, which is your sympathetic nervous system. So it's always ready to fight, or I'm freezing, or I'm paralyzed, or I can't move, or I'm going to fight you, or whatever. And they don't know how to shut it off. And again, colors their interactions with people, colors how they perceive things. And sometimes this happens when there is no threat. And then sometimes it happens when there is, right? We need to be able to distinguish the difference first of, is there an actual threat? If there is no threat, then
because sometimes I think there's one and there's actually none.
Exactly. So that's where you got to start is there an actual threat? Now, somebody saying that hurtful comment to you, like making fun of your spelling, is that a threat?
Not a real threat.
It's not. Right. Yet you are having a threat response and your nervous system is out of whack. So what you have to do is you have to go into self-regulation, whatever. What you can do to kind of, what I like to do, what I'll do with myself is I don't accept information people give to me. I'll question it though. I'll question it and then I'll make a decision from there if I accept it or not. Now, when I heard you say that, because I'm a terrible speller as well, and you know, and I'm like, I don't
People
know.
will correct you. I'm like, I'm 50. If I was
I
going to
don't
do
care.
it, it
I'm
would
not
have
even
been
going to
done.
try.
Yeah, I can't.
Even spell check doesn't know what I'm trying to spell half
me
the
neither.
time, and I
do
don't
the
care.
spell check and it still does it wrong.
Yeah, I thank God for the voice thing, right? But like when somebody's saying something like, I just look at it so differently now. I don't see it the way that other people see it. I'm like, oh, that person feels threatened by me. That's how I see that.
Ultimately, that's how I felt. I felt like
Yeah.
it's like it was like body. I'm like, that's because you don't have anything else to say about the facts.
Exactly.
You
Like
just-
if they're picking at that, and the biggest thing they have, like if they had something bigger, you think they wouldn't have thrown that at you?
You can't spell.
It's a yeah, exactly. It's like I can't. You're right.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
like, right.
Okay, give me a dictionary.
Yeah. But I vibe with what you're saying. Is like, is it
Yeah.
an actual response, and how do I interpret it?
Exactly. So it's just, you know, it's you got to kind of calm your nervous system down. And yes, people will, we will get attacks in many different ways, but those attacks don't measure a threat response physiologically. And so we really have to kind of calm our body down. And then when we do that, our frontal lobe kind of opens up, we readjust, we're able to make an informed decision on how we want to respond or not respond. And that's really the key to kind of navigating some of those things. Now, sometimes that's a very simple way to explain kind of the work that we've done and things that we do, because these things do get very unique and people do have very creative defenses that come up and stop us from being able to do some of those things. And that's why it's important to work with somebody that is aware, or somebody that you trust that can point out thinking errors that occur, projections that occur, and be able to bring you back down to your baseline.
Yeah, I love that. What I just did with that was I just didn't respond to it. You know, and I think through it. But yeah, I love that. And it's been interesting for me to like try and there's so many. It's just hard. It's hard to change yourself. It really like
It is, yeah.
It's a really like. It's a challenging thing, you know, and I know I'm not the only. I think it's human behavior, you know. And it's even knowing is a part of the battle. Like becoming self-aware of different things that I think and do and react, and my self-belief systems and my paradigms, you know. And I have, you know, I mean, outside of dyslexia and attention deficit, I mean, the body dysmorphia is, you know, it's a sneaky little bastard. And then, you know, addiction.
Well,
and like,
I remember, like, you know, that was very tough to us to kind of work through initially, because I was like, I think you're really kind of having a tough time with this. And you're like, no, I'm confident. I'm this, I'm this. And you were like really kind of coming at me a little bit there. But you know, I stuck with it. And, but like your defenses, right, were so high because how you saw yourself, how you identified as Lee was not insecure. That created a disconnect, cognitive dissonance for how you viewed yourself. And once we were able to kind of connect, like, hey, I wouldn't be doing this comparison thing. I wouldn't be leveling. I wouldn't be doing this stuff if I did actually feel good about myself. That's a hard thing to admit, right?
Stick on that for a minute. I mean, let's just, the cognitive dissonance and like the way that my brain puts that is, you know, what you've told me is that I'm not acting or in true alignment with what I think about myself necessarily. Like, so I unpack that, because I think that humans, this is part of a human condition, right? Where you see somebody who's super religious, but over here they're, you know, doing something weird,
exactly.
and they're like, oh God, but they're, you know, smuggling money out of, like, you know, and you're like, and this guy, so you see these people, it's a complete contradiction to, so it's a human condition. But stick on it for a minute, because the cognitive dissonance, I think, is important.
Well, I'll just use what we've worked on, if that's okay.
100%.
Since you've brought up the BDD, we'll just stick with that.
Sure.
So I could tell pretty soon that you were having a struggle, and your relationship with yourself was very fractured.
Well, the first thing you ended with, you actually said, I actually think you hate yourself.
Yeah.
And
you almost never came back.
I literally almost never came. I'm like, you're an idiot. I don't hate myself. Stupid, right? Like, that's what I was like, in my head. And then I thought about it for like 3 days, and I'm like, maybe she's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, that was our first conversation, was like, maybe you might hate yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I really felt like you're, yeah, absolutely.
And you were right. There was parts of myself that I absolutely hated.
Right. And so as we started working together, your self-concept is how we see ourselves, right? And you had a self-concept of strong, fit, this and whatever, which you objectively meet that. But your belief system was this kid that was fat, abused, and whatever. That's the Lee that you weren't connected to. And that Lee was also motivating your behavior to be fit and to do this and to do this. So it didn't matter how many rewards you got, how many praises you got. That would be gone in a moment. And then you were dependent on validation to regulate yourself emotionally, right? So what I would have to do is kind of, one, introduce you to this idea that, hey, you don't like yourself, and we're met with all of your defenses when we do that, which is super fun, right? But you stuck with it, and I appreciate that you did, you know. And one really amazing thing about you, Lee, is that you do always think about it. You do always, you're very introspective, and you are very honest with yourself. The thing is that you just weren't aware. You weren't aware. You didn't have the information. You didn't have feedback, to nothing to compare it to. You're just in your paradigm. You're in your world of this is me, right? And so you constantly striving and not feeling good enough was something that we had to, it's not something physically that you need to treat. It's something emotionally that you have to heal. So we do some trauma work. We do some things to try to heal that piece of you. It's not all of Lee, but it's a piece of you that's fragmented.
No, I love that. I think it's, we went through years of stuff with my mom where, now I talk to other people who go through stuff with their parents. A close friend of mine, I'm not going to spread his butter. There's a parent issue, and it was kind of similar to mine. It's like, but I'm not going to say mother or father, but the parent loved me and was there for me, and but I know the story, and I'm like, and I'm able to say, like, actually no, bro, that's what I used to think. And I used to say my mom was a great mom, and she loved me, and she always took me to do the drugs with her. Like, and we were on the streets, and my mom was a prostitute, unfortunately, and like all these really bad things. Did she love me? Absolutely. Was she addicted to drugs? Absolutely. Was she super wonky and make really terrible, atrocious parenting mistakes? Absolutely. But it took me so long just to admit that. And what I found was that part of my belief system was like, when I went back, that was part of my life that I hated. Gets me emotional. But I hated myself because of those situations that weren't my fault. And until I really realized, like, I was a victim. I was 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. And I had been excusing my mother's behavior and owning that stuff myself. And then I thought I hated the situations, but I actually was hating myself.
Yeah.
And so through some of our sessions, and this is just one little piece of like me, of, just helping people, like, and hopefully nobody else has this kind of trauma, but me connecting back to that stuff and realizing, like, oh, when I say that I actually hated parts of myself, we had to go way back. And I had to, like, not have that, like, disassociation with, like, the love and hate and why the situations, these were my realities, and I had to take responsibility for what was and wasn't my fault, and actually put some blame on my mom. And I was never able to do that because I loved her, and to me it was, she was like a God figure. So this is interesting because I was going to go into so that's great, the cognitive dissonance, and like really just, and this is why I love, we'll talk about why therapy later, but I think people will go through their whole life not understanding any of these parts of themselves, and then just continue to operate from a paradigm, and they just keep getting the exact same results forever. Exactly. And so it's like, this is why I love this stuff. So, so this one was, I never feel good enough about my accomplishments, my body, my work, my money, my savings, my investments, my marriage. It's a double-edged sword that drives me forward, but can consume my thoughts like a fire that warms and burns me at once. How does this show up for others in their lives, relationships, work, and what balance approaches can be used to harness the drive without the self-doubt? So, I've heard this from a lot of top performers or high performers in any field, working out, business, whatever it is, a high performer or whatever they're doing. For me, I think I actually heard Alex Hormozy talk about this once too. It's like this, there's this, okay, why why do I always go to the gym? Well, I'll be honest with you, because I have body dysmorphia and I'm running so fast and so hard from this fat kid that I don't want to be to this person that I can never seem to catch, that, you know, I just can't catch him. And I'm running from that guy and trying to get to that guy. And in between that is I'm going to the fucking gym.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going. Like, I'm going on vacation. I'm going when I'm home. I'm going when I'm sick. I'm going when I'm broke. I'm going when I'm rich. I'm going when I'm tired. Like, I'm going to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side of that, it doesn't matter that I go to the gym, because it's never good enough. Because I wake up and I look in the mirror and cognitively I can see, Lee, you look great. But I'm like, you fucking ate a donut last night. You fucking shit. You're fat. You're fluffy. You're not. Go to the gym. And so it's like, you know, and then in work, I'm like, it's not enough. I can do more. Lotus's life could be better. She can have a marriage. It can be. So there's this, like, we were just in Mexico and we were at this fire. And it was, this guy was saying, like, you know, he's kind of spiritual. He's like, what is the fire? My response was, it was a thing that's like burning inside that warms you but burns you at the same time. And I thought it's like this propulsion system. So, like, I think a lot of high performers have this propulsion system where it's this massive amount of, like, self-doubt and self-deprecating behavior that just, like, pushes them forward. And so I wanted to talk about that, because we just talked about it a little bit and it kind of related into this next question. But I think touching on it more, like, directly, like, you know, what do you see in high performers? What have you seen in me? Like, just the overall subject of, like, because it's like a fire that warms and burns. It's like, it's so great to have this stuff that comes with it, but God, does it hurt getting it?
Yeah, I do have a lot of, like, high performing clientele, and I always hear this from my male clients. They're like, yeah, but I need it. Right? They're like, I need it. And I'm like, you don't, you know,
You don't need it.
And then there's always this, like, battle, me to get them to lay some things down, and them saying, no, this is how I got here. And I guess I just look at it very differently. Like, these are not bad skill sets to have, but if it's debilitating, well, now it's no longer serving you, right? Like, in moderation, these things are actually okay. Like, for example, like, one of my other clients is like, he's like, well, I have to be anxious, because if I'm not anxious, then I'm not going to get stuff done, and I'll procrastinate and I'll do this. And the bigger issue, the real shit is, this is rooted in a false belief. There are lies that he is listening to. Okay. The resolution for a lot of these things is, you've got to kind of challenge what you're thinking about and stop. Everybody just believes what they tell themselves or what they've heard from somebody else. They just accept it as if that's somehow true because they've thought it. And they don't, you know, and
yeah, which sounds crazy, right?
Yeah, and it's just like,
the world looks flat from the beach.
Yeah,
but
but it's like, you really have to start thinking about what you're thinking about, and you have to create some space for it. So, for example, it's like, well, I won't get this done unless I'm anxious. Well, that's just so not true. Now, part of these feelings that a lot of my very successful clients have is actually an addiction that they're dealing with, which is, I could go on a field day with that alone, okay? And they don't want to let it go because of their addiction to that emotional state, not because it actually serves them. It's they're addicted to that biochemical component, that feeling, even if it's uncomfortable.
Cortisol.
Yeah, everybody knows smoking's bad, but it doesn't stop people from doing it. You know, so they are used to a certain state, and they practice and perform it. And when they're out of that state, so when they're out of anxiety and they're calm, they're uncomfortable. Not because it's bad, but because it's unfamiliar to them. And the other caveat to this is rooted in a low self-esteem, a lack of self-worth, and I'm not good enough, and I've got to constantly prove to somebody somewhere that I am. Yeah. That's a very, like, general way for me to hit the scope of what these things are. It's the truth
of it. I mean, that was a lot of the stuff that we went through. When I realized that, like, personally, like, it's so easy. I don't know for everybody. For me, once I realized, it was easy to admit because it was just true. I remember we went through. So one of the interesting things is now, since we've been working on my body dysmorphia, it's just an easy topic because it's so specific to me. But I think there's one, a couple of things I want to talk about here. One is the addiction to negative looping and cortisol, right? Which I'm like, I have an addiction to it. And two is the not good enough, low self-worth, low self-esteem. A lot of the stuff that we've done, like me just recognizing like, and that's the cognitive dissonance, I think
Yeah.
that's the right word, is like saying like, no, like I'm
this person. I'm not this person.
like, actually, no, and so I remember I would go into the gym, and I think I talked about this on the last one, so I won't cover it too much. But I would like find like the fittest dude in the gym always. And
You
I
were
would just,
leveling.
I hated that
Yeah.
dude. And I'm like, I'll bet he drives a 1999 Toyota Corolla. This fucking loser. Like,
Yeah.
like I would find something. And it was like, what's changed when I identified like that's low self-worth. And the leveling is me trying to make that dude, even though he's fit somewhere else, he's not as good as Lee.
Well, you had to bump him down to where you actually saw yourself, because people like to see eye to eye.
Yep. And when I realized that, like now I've worked hard on it, but like the gym for me and my fitness and my body has like over the last year and a half, 2 years since we've been doing this, has really changed. Like my enjoyment in the gym, my going to the gym, my reason, like I enjoy being fit. I enjoy the physical exertion. Like I love the gym. I've been there for a long time. So it wasn't all a negative thing, but it really was that fire that warmed me and burned at the same time. But as I've kind of worked through those things, this is one example. My marriage is another one where, some of these tools that I've discovered have like made my marriage so much better. So it's like, as I've worked on these different aspects of my life, each thing individually, each aspect of my life has gotten better. So it's been really cool. The other thing I wanted to hit here was Misty gave me this video the other day, and man, what she said was just like spot on. It was just TikTok, right? Of course, TikTok therapy. But what she said was like, it was this, what I related to was this, she was talking about, just being in a constant state of what you said, hypervigilance or fight or flight. And I'm like, man. And so we'll talk about, substances and, vices and gambling and porn and drugs and alcohol, right? These things that people, including myself, have used to medicate in their lives, whatever it is. But to me, that's come from my personal experience. Sometimes the reason I did it with steroids, I've done it with drugs, I've done it with alcohol. In my life, I've had a long, it's been 50 years, right? And it's been a long time. But any form of medication almost that somebody could think of, I've tried to do. And as I've gotten older and I've recognized, especially in my now, right, I'm more aware of myself, is what I see is, and I sometimes in some of the stuff that we work in, it's hard because we do once a week now, something we've done once every other week, but it's because you have so many things I need to work on, so you can only do one thing at a time. But I'll be in this hyper vigilant state where I'm just like, it's like wartime. Yeah. And some of that in, I've been in prison and some of these, so I have these habits where it's just like this constant, but I find it easy and comfortable. So I relate to what you were saying, is to be in this hyper vigilant state where I'm like, oh, there's no problem. Let me think of a problem. Oh yeah. I remember this from like, yes, this is and I need to like bring that back because and what's weird is, and I started paying attention to, I'm like, oh, now I feel better. Like now I'm mad. Yeah. Like, oh, let's get some music going with this thing. Like, let's get some So I guess what I want to talk about is recognizing the hypervigilant state or the constant state of fight or flight. And how do you get, I know it's a deep question, like how the fuck do you get out of it?
Well, I know how to get out of it.
Yeah, you do.
But, but look, I think most people aren't going to recognize when they're in it.
Yeah.
And that's the tough thing. You kind of have to have somebody that kind of can see this stuff, because otherwise it's going to just look normal, and you won't describe it accurately to other people that could possibly come in and provide some support. It is normal, but normal doesn't mean healthy. We are not made, like most people don't know how to rest. You can't sleep and run from a bear at the same time. You've got two different nervous systems that are activated. And people that are hypervigilant, people that are anxious, high performers are typically in their sympathetic state. They are fighting and on edge and they feel like they need it. And really, that's just a defense mechanism to keep them in that addictive state. It just gives them permission to keep being anxious. And I'm like, well, I can't let this go. You can't take away my heroin, aka my anxiety, because I need it, right?
Yeah.
That's your emotional thinking designed to keep you in the addictive state. Because people like what's familiar. And if like, you really got to kind of go back to, again, the baseline of, is there an actual threat? And if there is not a threat, I should not be in a constant state of worry and fear. I should not be always trying to control the outcome. I shouldn't be assuming the worst. Like, if you're doing those things, then you are in a hypervigilant state right there. And those are two great questions to ask yourself to check and see if, am I experiencing a threat response? And then you've got to say, does this situation actually warrant that? Is somebody actually attacking me right now? I know these comments on Instagram like are really shitty, but like, am I actually being threatened? Because if not, then it's my responsibility to teach my body that it's safe again.
So talk maybe just through what generalized. What would be a threat and not a threat? Some examples of like, because to me, like what we're like Instagram, you don't spell well, not really a threat. I'm going to stab you with a knife. A threat.
Yeah, threat. I think in terms of like life, death, physical violence, something that jeopardizes your personal safety, some forms of psychological abuse and narcissism would absolutely be a threat.
So some emotional stuff can be an actual threat.
I absolutely think so. Yeah. And those things are a direct response. Your body doing that, being hypervigilant, is because you can't trust that person and you shouldn't trust that person. You, like, if somebody raises their hand really quickly and like you've been in an abusive relationship, you should do that.
Yeah.
You should do that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's a natural.
Bear's chasing me.
Yeah, exactly. Run.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're just trying to walk down the sidewalk, you have to have wisdom and discernment on what's going on. Now, that requires a level of healing and conditioning. You have to teach your body something else, because chances are, if you're in this state more often than you're not, that has been an emotional state that you have practiced and rehearsed, and it's now automatic. It is beneath your level of awareness, and it's doing it without you. So you really have to be so intentional and so aware, and question the thoughts that you're, having, and question the experiences that you're having, and be aware of your paradigms. And there's a lot that goes into this to kind of keep you regulated to get to a state where you can actually see things clearly. But yes, to your point, even unpleasant emotions are addictive in nature and will keep you hooked. And even though we cognitively know that they're not good for us, our body says, I don't care, I want it anyway.
I gravitate towards that. I mean, I'll do things like, God, and as soon as I start feeling better, I stop doing something.
Well, it's not actually better. See, that's not actually the right thing that's going on. See, you'll tell yourself that's better. That's actually your emotional thinking keeping you bonded to that emotional state, as if it's somehow better. What's actually going on is, I'm used to this feeling. This feeling feels safe to me.
And my body wants to go back.
I want safety. I want predictability. I like this feeling. I feel in control. It's not better or healthy. It's just what you know.
Well, you know. That's great. Love that. It's a lot. There's a lot in there. I hope that helps. It helps. And the weird thing is, Jamie, is like, I know everything you just said, you said to me a lot. And you're always like, do your homework. And I'm like, okay. And I never do. But I know the things. I'm like, but I like when I'm like in a threat response, I don't like, I have a really just, it's been years I've been doing this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we should just, at some point, maybe I'll get like I need to stop and like, okay.
Don't you think you're so much better now though? Like than you were?
So much
like
better.
night and day.
So much better.
You're
like,
night and day different.
100%. No, like the way that I view myself, the way that I view the world, the way that I deal with situations, my marriage is drastically different. My life is drastically different. My business life is like emotionally, like I'm way different. It's, and I guess it's that trying to chase the perfect thing, because my brain goes, well, yeah, Lee, like, okay, is this a threat? No, it's not a threat.
Well,
I wish I could still, because I have the tool you've given me, but it's so rare that I feel like I actually pull it out and use it. Like I have it in there, but I'd rather pick up that other one.
Well, it's easier. Like that is actually the easier thing to do. Like, because what I ask people to do is quite quite difficult, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want to do that. We don't get an immediate gratification from that. We don't get a fix. We don't get an emotional high. You have to work.
Yeah.
Like you're really working.
No, it is work.
Yeah.
No, we've made some massive progress. I feel like, so yeah, I guess that's it. You know, it's like, I found myself really just hating. I that's my negative. Like, I hate this person.
Mm-hmm.
And then like a couple months later being like, it really wasn't that bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like definitely could have not hated them for that. Like, and there's other ones
Sure.
where I'm like, wow, you're a real son of a bitch. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're a dirty, that was some dirty stuff. Like, I think I'll hate you for the rest of my life. I've had other situations where I thought I was in that situation and forgiven the person. You know, it's like, so I guess it's, you know, we go through traumas. One is, I guess, how do we go back to kind of one of the first questions is make sure, like, what's our ownership in it? So we talked about that. Write it down. Do you have a bad gut feeling? Making sure that we're checked into like our portion of it, right? So beyond that, so we covered that in the first one, like what's my responsibility and portion? How do I put myself in the light and take accountability? But above and beyond that, some traumas are real,
Yeah.
and they really do suck, and people can really suck. And so how do we, you know, like identify when to forgive, who to forgive, how to forgive? Just, I mean, talk about, because, you know, hating is, you know, letting somebody else rent space in your head. Like, and I've thought this too. I'm like, I'll bet so-and-so's not just sitting in their bed right now at 11 o'clock at night,
Right.
thinking about like running you over. Like, you know, like
Right.
how do you, so, you know, cause it's negative self, it's bad. And it's part of the addiction of the cortisol, and it's the negative self looping, and it's digging up a dead
Yep.
body that doesn't really matter. So yeah, just talk through that a little bit. Like, how do we identify when we need to forgive, how to let go?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a great question. So I'm going to answer this kind of in two ways. Forgiveness is a spiritual principle. Okay. So I'm going to answer that through a spiritual lens. It's really important because there's something supernatural that's going on with forgiveness. It's not just an act. It's bigger than that. I have to kind of start by saying forgiveness is not the same thing as reconciliation. So those are two separate things. You can forgive somebody and not reconcile with them. You can forgive them and not like them. You can forgive them and still be angry at them. Okay.
That's good.
So we've got to kind of put
My brain instantly chirps up when I can still be angry at them.
Well, like if you think about it, anger is not a negative emotion, or it's a bad emotion. It's a normal emotion. It
Yeah.
like we have these bad labels on it. It's not bad. The management of it can be good or bad. That's what makes it destructive or not destructive. But the emotion itself is fine. If somebody comes up and punches me in the face,
I'm gonna be mad.
I'm going to be mad. But if I punch you back, I could get a charge. I could catch a charge.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's how we respond to these things that have happened to us. Now, forgiveness, I believe that our healing is not possible without it. Because unforgiveness bonds you to your pain, you recommit to your pain, and you marry your pain, and you get stuck in your pain. Supernaturally, something is going on there. That's why I believe it's a rule and biblically based. But not going too spiritual, I believe that there's value in it because it says, I'm releasing you. I'm not your judge. I'm not your jury. You owe me nothing. And it gives you freedom to move on. Now, if I'm stuck and can't move forward because I need something from the person that hurt me, that trips me up. Like, that's like me going to a person that shot me and asking them to take the bullet out. Like, do I really want my healing dependent on another person? That's what unforgiveness does. So I believe, and if you are a Christian, it is a requirement. It is a must. It says you yourself will not be forgiven unless you do this. So you have to take that very, very seriously. Now, if you're having a hard time with that concept, think of it this way. Have you hurt people? Have you sinned against people? Would you want that mercy and forgiveness done to you? It makes it easier to forgive when you realize how sinful you are yourself and how in need of it you are. Does that kind of answer your...
It does. I think like there's a lot in there. It does. I think it does. There's so much more in there I would want to talk about. We're at an hour and 11, but yeah, I mean, because, there's It does, yeah. There's so much more in there because I would want to start asking questions on like, well, I am angry. Let's define forgiveness more. And I would just think like ultimate forgiveness is like I actually forgive you for this stuff, but I still have business, because how do we handle this
It's a
stuff?
process,
It's a
right?
process,
It's
yeah.
a process. It starts with the decision to forgive.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an act first and the emotions will line up later. But that doesn't mean that you're absolved from anger. It doesn't mean that you don't get triggered. Like these things evolve. And believe me, a fresh wound is not going to feel the same as something that happened 20 years ago that you've forgiven.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a decision and it's a commitment. It's something that you have to kind of reinvest in daily. And look, you do the opposite when you unforgive. You recommit to that anger every single day.
Do you think that's part of that addictive, like hypervigilance?
I think
Or is it a separate, or is it
I
like,
think unforgiveness is attached to justice. It's when somebody has done you wrong, we
Justice.
naturally want justice and vindication, and
Yes.
we're like, you owe me.
yes.
And that's a very normal, like human emotional state and response, and it's not bad. But if you want to forgive, you have to say, I don't even see it anymore. That's hard.
It is hard. It is. So the last question that I had written down was about self-medication. After that, I'd like to just kind of close with some stuff on like, therapy and, what your view is on therapy and helping just a small conversation after this question on like, because I think men especially get, well, I don't need fucking therapy. I don't need that shit. So we'll kind of go into that last as not necessarily a question, but maybe just a small. So I wanted to, this one is just, we can cover it. I think I had like 800 W's written on here. I was pushing over. So I just wanted to talk about self-medication because it's something that, I still go through in many different forms. It's like I can self-medicate with anger. I've self-medicated with substances. I've self-medicated with steroids. I've like, and it's not an ongoing thing, but it's, I have buddies that gamble. I have, I can self-medicate with porn sometimes. I can self-medicate with, just like I said, anger. I can self-medicate with the gym. I can self-medicate, So I just want to talk about that. There's a podcast with Huberman with, what's this doctor's name? Anna something. But she talks about the regulation of dopamine and like, the goal in life, right? Is a nice goal to have in life is to be regulated into homeostasis, where I'm never too far off balance, right? Like if I go into depression or anxiety, I'm able to like. And one of the things that she wrote about that I really related to was kind of a lot of what we've talked about here is going into these hypervigilant states, and it creates a form of like, for me, emotional and mental pain, right? Where I'm always disliking someone. I'm always mad. I'm always this, or I'm always never good enough, or or it's just so challenging, and it's just like, it's the fire that burns and warms me at the same time. But there's a pain state in that, right? And I'll find myself like, God, I need to like, fuck, I need to relax from this. Or, I just talked to a guy the other day, and he's like, and he hates gambling. He's like, bro, I've been gambling. And I'm like, you're medicating, bro. And, so I think, the various forms of people doing this, and I just don't see it. In my life, when I've lived the best, it's when I've been completely abstinent of, even when I say that, I'm like, have I ever been abstinent of like, I've had, months where I've watched more porn than other, or where I worked out more, I did more steroids than other, I did drugs more than others, or I drank more than others. And it's like, even in the times when I was abstinent of the hardcore things, there was other things that I was medicating, and I feel like it's this lack of balance of homeostasis and this like self-medicating. So I just wanted to talk about that because I think it's also part of the human condition to want to medicate yourself or to stop the pain or to get a break or escapism. A lot of that's some of the times that I've, had issues in my life. There was a period where I'm like, you know what I need to do? I need to do some Adderall. Like that'll fix my shit because and I did that and I was like, this fucking sucks. And then, I did it again and getting it from a doctor. Right. And I'm like, and I look back and I'm like, what if I did some ketamine therapy? Like, there's in my brain, I'm like, it was all bad. It's bad. It was, and I look back and I'm like, what was going on with, I was in extreme pain and I needed to escape. And, and it never had, any, it's like smoking doesn't have a benefit. There's no like, oh yeah, you escape and you feel, and you're emotionally, everything's great. And for a day or a night or a moment, and then boom, there you are back with yourself. And you're like, fuck, here I am again. So I just wanted to talk about self-medicating in general, maybe identifying like, what do you see that's a lot of the time at the base of that? How do people kind of self-regulate that and because to me the answer would be probably get into some therapy and start figuring some stuff out. But I just wanted to talk about that topic because I think it's prevalent.
Well, I think everybody does it.
Yeah.
I think everybody self-medicates now. Like, we tend to kind of like look at self-medication like drugs or alcohol. It's not. It could be the gym. It could be a lot of things. Anything in excess can be like negative. You can take yoga to excess, like you can do healthy things to excess where it's a way that you're trying not to deal with yourself, right? Look, the root of this is a dysregulated nervous system. That's the root of it. And what we do is we add these substances or things or we alter our state to feel better. And guess what? It works most of the time. That's why we do this stuff. It actually works, but temporarily.
There you are.
It's not a long-term solution, right? So in therapy, what we really kind of want to work towards is, one, is this a healthy solution, like what you're doing, like, because some are and some just need to be moderated and some are just really destructive to begin with, And then we got to go back to the why. What are your, people are doing this because they're in pain. They're not doing this because they're happy and life is great.
Yeah.
Something is wrong, and this is a clue that we need to kind of address something going on. Like, why is this making you feel better? What's going on? Like, why are you feeling bad to begin with? What in your life is causing you an area of pain? And then it's going into that pain and exploring that pain and then helping that person either work through it, find different solutions, forget, like whatever it is. And then that helps regulate their nervous system to where they're not seeking out these other things. The other thing is, it might not be that. It could be biochemical. There was a study done when I was in doing psychopharmacology in school where we looked at brain scans. And this one really stuck out to me. It was a meth user. And we see a picture of a normal, healthy brain light up and all the boom, 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 and then the meth user's brain. And I thought that they were going to show me, it was clearly like dead, right? And I was like, oh, well, that's from the meth. And they're like, no, this is when they're not using. And then it showed another scan of when they were using, normal, healthy brain. It was wild what did. So there was something that was biochemically really off with this person where they're introducing, and we do the same thing with Adderall, but we prescribe it. Like, they're saying that something is wrong, right? And it kind of lights up these parts of the brain. Now, that can be abused to excess and things like that. But for some people, there really is something outside of their control where they just can't regulate themselves and they do need support. Right. So those things are kind of where I would start with people.
Love that. What was interesting was, it was a couple years ago, and I'd convinced myself that I wasn't getting the work done that I needed to do. I have attention deficit. I mean, it's both my daughters have it. I've also come to realize this attention deficit can be a superpower if it's harnessed correctly. But, I convinced myself, okay, so maybe I'll try Adderall. And so I got a couple of Adderall prescriptions. What was interesting, when I relate to what you just said, is I would, do the Adderall, and, I know my personality. Like, I'm not always like, but I would become very quiet. I would focus, but it would completely change. Like, it didn't, like, I wasn't up cleaning the house. I would do my work, and it would move a lot of, my brain literally is like, I can be walking to do something, and I'm like a little butterfly, and I'm like, bing, 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 and it is a superpower and a problem at the same time. But what I really noticed was it was interesting because it was just kind of a focus area for me where I almost felt what you were talking about, where another part of my brain was lit up, but it also at the same time took away another complete part of my personality, which I actually love. Like, it was an interesting, like, little run with that. So I really relate to that. So the therapy, I mean, that kind of plays into the therapy, like, because to me, I'll let you answer, but I guess the question is like, how does somebody know when they need therapy? And, I just know I need therapy. Well, I think too, I've had a unique experience in life. I mean, in prison, I was in a couple of drug treatment programs inside. I spent a lot of time at Alcoholics Anonymous. I've had, counselors and therapists throughout my life. And so I've had these little increments of where like I could see flashes of myself, of the self-awareness and the dawning. And I think the years I spent at Alcoholics Anonymous were really relevant because, what they teach in AA a lot is, one, don't talk about AA, but they talk a lot about like the self-awareness. Part of the step process is like, where are you accountable? Who are you accountable for? And so for me, the therapy has been kind of a no-brainer because I'm like, I need help like navigating this inside my head. And also I want to be a good father, a good husband. I want to be a good team member. I want to be a good friend. I want to be a good family member. And the only way for me to be better at all of those things is to be in therapy and like get help with how I process the world. But I don't think that everybody thinks that. And I meet people that I know, friends of mine, I'm like, and they'll tell me about their life. I'm like, man, you need that therapy would really help you like work through like parent problems or the self-medicating or like anxiety responses or I'm like, man, if you like, cause I can see it, I'm like, I have that thing that you have, like, man, therapy's helped me. I'm like, they would help you. And they're, no, I have one of my friends, they're like, no, she's too pretty. Like, I'm like, okay. Like, I'm like, she's so smart. She outsmarts the pretty. Like, but so when does somebody, how can they identify when they need therapy?
Well, I think everybody needs therapy. Like, and I'm saying that, like, I'm a therapist and I've gotten therapy too. Like, I mean, I think that there's almost kind of an issue with the question because it implies that something's wrong. This is for everybody. You don't have to be in distress to get help. Like, how often, like, it's kind of like,
that's a good point.
How often do we talk to our friends about something going on?
A lot.
Why wouldn't you do that to somebody qualified to help you?
Right.
I always kind of look at it that way, and I'm like, why wouldn't you want to go to somebody that can actually like give you some insight? Like,
because all we do with friends is complain to each other.
Yeah, and it's just like, but then I will say this: not everybody's looking for help. I've had plenty of people come to me, and they're not really looking for my help. They're looking for my validation. They're looking for permission, or or they want something else. Okay, it's gamey and personality disorder stuff, but like, not everybody wants help. Some people like being who they are, and that's a reason they don't actually get it. They're not actually trying to change. Okay, but for the people you don't have to be in distress to get therapy. Like, therapy doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. Therapy can be incredibly supportive, but therapy is also work, as you know. Like, it is not easy, right? It has not been a walk in the park doing therapy.
No. It's mental and spiritual. Well, yeah, because I mean,
how tough has it been for you to show up sometimes and be vulnerable? How hard has it been to like confront pieces of yourself that you would rather keep in the dark, right? Like, that's freaking hard. That's a big ask, and I know, and not everybody's willing to do that. Okay, but for the people that are, if you can find, because not everybody's a good therapist. Okay, I have to say that too. You got to find somebody that's good, that you vibe with. Because believe me, a lot of therapists will just be like, how does that make you feel? And that bugs the shit out of me. I'm like, how is this valuable?
Yeah, it feels like shit.
Yeah, I don't need to tell you. Like, I feel like crap, okay? Like, do something, please.
Yeah, my buddy could have told me that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's important. But like, I really do feel like it's for everybody. I myself still check in with a therapist from time to time because I like to be objective too. And I know that I also have blind spots. And I believe in being better. I believe in being accountable. I believe in improving. And I like to hear somebody else's perspective on things. I like to grow. I like to learn. It's not always easy, but it has served me well and it has helped me. And man, I mean, I know it's hard for people, but if you're willing to do the work, I mean, this can really change your life for the better. It is the thing that can be the game changer for you to do this.
Yeah. No, I've like, I've noticed that's actually been my experience with it, is like, every area of my life that we work on, it's interesting because we worked on so many different areas, and there was, we've done my childhood and my marriage. And, one of the things we haven't done a lot is my sobriety. And I get so hyper focused on, it's like, so we start working on my sobriety. And what is my sobriety? It's the disease of alcohol. It's the disease of alcoholism, and it's an obsessive, right? And if I'm not working on that, so what's interesting, the reason I'm saying that is because in every area that we've worked on, my life has gotten better. And by better, I mean so the gym is a great example. What we're going through at work, it's another great, so I have this paradigm of why are they doing this?
Yeah.
You're like, because they don't act like you. Stop thinking and as soon as you said, the moment you said that, I was like woke up, and the self-hate stuff, going back into my child and really touching being out of control of situations. As a child, my ego had turned all that into hate, and going back to those things, starting to love and just really go back and be like, it's okay. Lee, it's okay. I've had moments where I just go back and I'm like, my breath work or stuff where I've just gone back to that boy. And I've just told him, it's not your fault, and actually been able to love myself from there again. But in every area that we've worked on, it's like the gym. I'm so much happier now. My body dysmorphia, it still sneaks up on me. And it's, Jamie, how long did it came in so many ways.
Yeah.
I'll hate my fucking big toe if you let, I hated myself. And it would creep up, and it would come into my marriage, my relationships, and my gym, and this, and and I'm not saying I'm cured of it, but I'm a million times, I'm first of all, I'm aware of it. I'm so much more cognitive of how I think about myself, how I perceive I'm so much lighter on myself, my self-talk. And so with my groups in correlation, sometimes I'll start with just a 15-minute kind of things some weeks, and I'll say, look, think about what you thought about when you woke up today. Think about what you said to yourself. And because I do those things, I'm like, my inside voice for Lee is so much better. And I'm not perfect, and I still screw up, and I still do dumb shit, and I'm still, I'm still a human. But the things that we really focused on, and I guess I'm just giving this kind of personal testimony because, therapy for me has been literally life altering. It's been great. So in accordance with that, on your socials, I can go in there and look. Is there a link tree where how do they reach Jamie Lynn? Is it an Instagram? Is it an email? What's the best way?
Most people just DM me. So it's Jamie Lynn. I'm probably going to be one of the first people that pop up. Jamie _.
And I'll tag you on there too.
Yeah. And then I have, that's kind of my personal / professional. And then I have, I don't even know my other Instagram. I think it's Pink Pill the Podcast is my other Instagram, where you can see my podcast clip. But on my personal, my email is also linked to that account.
Okay.
And email is probably the best way to reach me. And that is linked through my Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah, you can just reach out to me there, and then I'll take it from there.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to, I'll have your link in the bio. So I appreciate you coming on for the second time. It's been, just so great to have you. Gets me a little. It's been great to have you in my life. My marriage is better. I'm better. I feel a lot more free. I still feel like I have a lot of work to do. And I still, God, my mind, it's I don't know if everybody suffers like I suffer from, the negative self-looping, but part of this podcast I wanted, this is what I always say, I can be this emotional and just run into war, but that's what this has been like for me. It's been like a spiritual war, to get out of the fight with myself. And, part of the reason I wanted to have you on is because I know that other people suffer like I suffer. And part of the reason, just so the viewers know, the reason I'm so vulnerable on this podcast with you is because I want other people to know. It's like I've had plastic surgery as a man to like remove skin. Like I believe in that. Like go do it.
I do too.
Go,
we all know I'm a huge advocate of plastic surgery.
Go make yourself feel better. Like, and it's
Yeah.
not just the gym, and it's not just plastic surgery, and it's not just, go read, listen to books, listen to podcasts, be more intelligent, but be more spiritually fit, connect with God, like do therapy. Like, so part of this is like, and I get emotional because you really have changed my life. And so part of this is not just promoting you, anybody that wants to connect with you, I want them to do that. But, I don't know if women have an easier or harder time, but I know a lot of the guys that I know, they're just stuck in it. And I'm like, bro, get some therapy. And they're like, I know, I can't. So that's my call out for this is like, and I love what you said. You don't need to be in crisis to fix it. So,
Right.
yeah. So thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. I value you. I'm grateful for you. Thank you for everything.
Well, thank you. Don't make me cry, Lee. I'm trying to get through this too.
Yeah.
No, I want to thank you for having me on. And like, I can only do as much as you're willing to do, right? Like,
Yeah.
you have stuck with me for years. And you have really put a lot of faith and trust in me and trusted me with those parts of yourself that people don't get to see. And I don't take that lightly. And I thank you for
Yeah.
that.
You've always been great. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Lee.
All right.